Welcome to Rainbow Soul, part of the WLFE DB network, an explorative discussion about spirituality beyond mainstream religions. Hollis Taylor, author, psychic, astrologer, and alchemical mage, brings their non-binary perspective together with fellow drag king and transman LeKross Ortiz, a Jewish Taino with spiritual background of exploration that has led him to an atheist perspective. Join these guys as they explore deep and difficult topics, all related to spirituality, offering a queer perspective, an exploration of interesting topics, and engaging guests to help explore conversations for the Rainbow Soul.
Hey,
Hey,
so great to be here.
it's exciting. This is exciting.
It's very exciting. It's been all week. I've just been just like, okay, I have to make sure I got this and this and this.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to channel your nervous energy.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
so I'm Hollis Taylor and this is LeKross.
Yep.
And we want to welcome you to Rainbow Soul. I'm so glad you're watching today. We are going to have guests on. We're going to discuss what is spirituality, but we first thought we'd let you know who we are.
Yep.
So, like I said, I'm Hollis Taylor, and I'm an author of the book Divine Androgen. It's a sacred path for gender variant people. It's meant to make your own path. It's not religion.
Yeah.
And so, I also want to say that I'm also a witch, pagan. Some people would call me a techno mage, and I love alchemy. I love the magic of alchemy. So those are my main interests. I do have a background in Catholicism and have explored most of my adult life different paths of spirituality, and have pretty much ended up making my own. So that's where I am today, and I'm doing this show because it is my number one intention to help people grow, to especially GLBTQ community. I feel that some of us have been pulled away from our own spirituality. And so that's kind of the main thing that I want to do is help people redefine or refine who they are, who their soul is, why they're here, and to get more in touch with their soul because I believe it's part of good, balanced mental health. So, hey, LeKross, why don't you tell us who you are?
My drag name is LeKross Menendez. I did a lot of cosplay drag. And my real name is LeKross Ortiz. I am Jewish, basically a traditional Jew at this point. I'm not an observant Jew. If I get to observe it, I do it. If I don't, it's I don't feel I'm going to burn for it. I also am Native American and from the Taino tribes, which were the tribes of the Caribbean. Uh, I've delved in a lot, a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Wiccan, a little bit of just natural magic, herbology, dream interpreting since I was 5. The list is just a lot when you get your hands into the spiritual realm. But at the end, I am an atheist, and that's going to be a nice question we get to answer later on. But with the spirituality, I believe that you could be spiritual without a great divine. And yeah, that's pretty much, I think that's everything. Because there's too much to just put it all in one. It's like I had my dirty little hands in everything. Okay.
Well, tell us also what your intention is doing this show. What's your
My
intention?
my intention for the show is I believe that the community there's a lot of damage and a lot of hurt people out there and a lot of lost people. And I don't mean lost like they don't know their way, just kind of misplaced, that they're just going through a lot of rough times. And for people to realize that there are people who are out there who can help and bring some type of energy or enlightenment or whatever it is that you need. And I think that's the whole purpose of me being on this, is that I want to be able to touch those who feel kind of hopeless and realize we all have a story and that we all should tell our story. And once again, there is a spiritual path. It doesn't have to be religion. So that's my whole thing, is to bring that to light. And yeah, just to help as much as I can. So
fantastic. I'm so glad you're here, LeKross. I love that we're doing this and that we're bringing this together, because I think that you're right. I think that there are people out there that are lost, or some people also are just like, when you're rejected by certain religions because of who you are, it can cause a crisis of faith. I know I did. I had a huge crisis of faith. And so when you have a crisis of faith, it's almost like you don't know what you believe, and you're questioning everything you did believe, and then your reality now. And that's how it feels. And it can feel kind of heart crushing. I've actually had a few crises of faiths.
Yeah.
And I would say that the big one that I had was when I was a teenager in Catholic school. I just questioned about who I was and where I was coming from and where I was going. Because it seemed to me that in the Catholic Church, anyway, in the Catholic school I went to, there was a lot of hypocrisy. And for me, based on my astrology, well, it kind of makes my skin crawl. Yeah. Hypocrisy is a good way to get me going, what the heck is wrong with you? Yeah. You can't say one thing and then do another.
Right.
And I really struggled with hypocrisy. Right. And then I started seeing the shunning of people, or the pushing away of people because of their because of who they were. And then, of course, being an ally before I came out for the entire LGBTQ community, I was very disappointed, and that pretty much ended any of my relationship with Christianity at all. So that was years ago. It was years, long ago. Yeah. Even back when they were doing the reprogramming. So right. I think you've probably had a crisis of faith. A couple of them, probably. Eh?
Oh yeah. I definitely. I mean, I grew up Pentecostal. That in and of itself will tell you how my biggest turnoff was the constant judgment and the arrogance of people assuming that they could speak as to where your walk in life is. And if you weren't doing everything according to what they said, then you were going to hell, or you weren't really a part of the community, or you weren't really, faithful to the faith. And to me, that was, the more that I learned and the more that I learned and the more that I delved into it, the more I realized people suck. And at first I hated the religion for it. I did. And then I started realizing it's not the religion, it's the people. I mean, I want to break that down, like in my opinion. And I realized everybody kind of has a little piece of the truth. It's just what you do with it. And in my opinion, they just tend to take whatever they want, put it in whatever direction that suits them. And to me, maybe it's a Libra in me. I can't stand an injustice. I cannot stand an injustice. You don't treat people like garbage with a self-righteous attitude. So that was my biggest problem with religion, and where I went away from it. And it didn't matter what community I went to. I ended up realizing everybody's screwed up. Everybody has some screwed up story, so yeah, it was definitely a hard thing to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think when we come from that, and then also, of course, I've witnessed, I'm sure this has happened to you, where people actually not only have a crisis of faith, but then they personalize that faith problem. And then we have trans people killing themselves or threatening suicide. And we have LGBTQ people. There's a reason there's a high we're one of the highest percentage of minority people that are suicidal. This is why.
Yeah.
This is why. Because you've essentially rejected our soul.
Yeah.
And as a result, that can lead to huge depression and other problems, especially with mental health. And so to me, it feels like the best thing that we could do is to define our own path in this.
Right.
And I think both of us have done that. And some of the guests that we're going to have on today, I think they've also defined their own path. Yeah. So I want to just start talking about that. We're going to answer, what is spirituality? What is spirituality? So when you say spirituality, because I define myself as a very spiritual person, and I will say that, and people make assumptions about that. Yeah. So we're going to bring in a couple of other people here, T. Roy and Kevin from their show. They are part of the WLFE DB network, and a friend Lee, who's part of who's starting a podcast called Fractured Minds. So we're all going to talk about that, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring them out. All right, LeKross?
Okay.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome, guys.
Hi, guys. How's everybody doing?
We're doing excellent.
Welcome,
T-Roy and Kevin.
Congratulations on your first show, and welcome to WLFE-DB family, baby.
Yay.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, T-Roy and Kevin? Tell us who you are.
I'm T-Roy. I'm the host of Everything Yet Nothing on WLFE-DB.com. And you can come and check us out. There's all kinds of other shows on there, like Rainbow So and
paranormal shows,
paranormal
variety shows.
That's what I was trying to think of.
Some LGBTQ shows, and I'm the husband. We kind of got dropped into this. I co-host with him sometimes, and he's the star. I'm just the behind the scenes guy.
And thank you, Lee, the compliment on my makeup.
You're welcome. I really like it.
So much.
Good. Lee, you want to tell us who you are?
Well, I'm a 29-year-old trans man, freshly 29. I have a history being raised Christian pagan, and I've explored a variety of different things. I constantly love to learn, so anything new I can learn about a culture, a person, a spiritual path, psychology, whatever, I'm behind it, and I'm researching it, and if only I could retain everything I learned.
It doesn't get any better when you get older. I'm just going to let you know now. It doesn't get any better.
Good to know.
I swear, the more I learn, it disappeared.
That's a disclaimer right there.
Good to know. I can prepare.
Well, I'm so glad all of you are here because, one of the questions that I've really thought needs to really be talked about is, what is spirituality? And one of the reasons that I think is super important is because when I say I'm spiritual, someone assumes I'm religious, and I'm like, whoa, that spirituality does not equal religion at all, actually. And in fact, I was like, it's actually, I think that spirituality is actually kind of hard to define sometimes. But I was impressed at the dictionary. I'm going to read you guys what the dictionary says when you say, what is the definition of spirituality? And it says, the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things.
Hmm.
That is
Yeah.
spirituality. And I was like, wow, that is incredibly accurate.
Yes.
And I would say that
Yeah.
there are so many millions. You can be religious and spiritual, but you can also be spiritual without being religious.
Yes.
And I think that for us to define what it is this beautiful thing. But even for me, like doing my yoga in the morning, that's spirituality. And praying to my ancestors, that's spirituality. When I reach back to my ancestors and say, please bless this in this show today, please bless us all, please,
Yeah.
whatever I'm asking for, or safety in the moment,
Yeah.
that is spirituality.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's when we
It
recognize
is.
that we are more than just a human soul. So I want to open the floor for us to go
Yeah.
ahead and take a moment to talk about how spirituality shows up for you.
Oh, for me?
Go for it, LeKross.
Oh boy, spirituality shows up when I wake up and I'm just like, okay, I'm still here. What am I going to do today? What are my goals? Spirituality to me is literally, I have realized that I like to live my life as an adventure, and any possible new thing that I can do or be a part of is spiritual to me. And most of all, not just leaving it with me, but being able to share it with other people. To me, that's being spiritual. Um, if I put my garden up, that's spiritual to me. If I weight train, that's spiritual to me. Anything that I'm doing to better myself so that I in turn can better my community, to me is spiritual. That's how I sum it up.
That's beautiful.
Anybody else? Go ahead. Go for it.
Go ahead. You can jump in. Go ahead.
Please.
T-Bray or Lee.
I like what LeKross said about whatever I'm doing to improve myself and my community is spiritual, because kind of when I get down to the crux of it, I find that spirituality often has to do with the quality of connection I have with my community and the world and the people around me. If I'm disconnected from the world around me, I'm not in my spiritual seat. If I'm disconnected from the community around me, I'm not in my spiritual seat.
Right.
There's a level of conscious awareness about being spiritual, aware of where you've been in the past, aware of what you're working with has been in the past, and aware of where you are now, and a vision of where you'd like to go to in the future. And I find often people who are practicing their own spirituality have a pretty good grasp on a realistic view of the future when they do these practices of staying present with yourself in the moment instead of letting your mind get eaten by the past or worries about the future. For me personally, spirituality is quite a few things. It's when I find silence in the noise of the day. It's when I connect with my inner child. It's when I'm able to connect in some way to nature or the appreciation of nature, even if it's just opening my window and feeling the breeze that day because I don't have a garden yet.
Right.
It's been a lot of things for me. And because I grew up Christian pagan, it's I don't have an answer to what the overarching universal energy sentience is that's behind everything. I don't have a solid concept of that at all. And I think religion gives you a more solid concept of what that's supposed to be. And I like it when it's free for open interpretation, because I learn a lot more about people, how they see the world, how they see their placement in the world, if I get to know their unique vision of spirituality. So connecting with other people in a conscious, mindful, and compassionate way is a huge part of spirituality for me.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
That is awesome. So, all of you have like really touched on a lot of stuff that my spirituality is. I'm not religious. I am very spiritual. We are both Wiccan, pagan, and like my spirituality is water. Like Izzy was saying, I go to water and I feel like I am purified by the gifts that Mother Nature has blessed us with. And to me, that's my spirituality. The trees, the leaves, just setting and feeling the wind blow and hit your face and it, the leaves on the trees. It's like if you really close your eyes and concentrate, your spirituality is the sounds, like Lee was saying, and LeKross. It's just everything that is positive. That comes in my life. That's pretty much my spirituality.
Yeah, because
You have another guest. You have an extra
entwined
guest.
with everything.
Right.
And so when we take the time to be with nature and to be out there, we are lucky enough to live in the country and live over by a creek. And so anytime we want to reconnect, all we have to do is just walk to the woods, and anytime we want to do, like you said, we're pagans.
It is.
And, the offerings are just so easy to give. And
rituals.
It's the reason that I got into paganism. I was raised in the Church of Christ. My grandpa's a preacher. My whole family is in the church. Now my uncle's a preacher. My dad was song leader. He was also the young adult church class, Bible school, whatever you call it. Anyways, so when I started looking into Wicca and paganism, my very first book was Living Wicca. And my dad decided I'm going to open it up. And he saw the horned god. And he was like, I told you that you were devil worshiping. I told you. And I was like, Dad, that has nothing to do with your devil. But anyways, that's a whole other story. But I got into paganism to reconnect with my mom because she died when I was 9. And spirituality to me is basically the whole point around my religious quest.
Yes.
And so I totally believe that we're all connected in spirit. And if we take the time, that's where the energy flows. Like being witches, you guys, that's where the energy flows, is through us, through our spirits, through, from the earth into each other. So that's my spirituality. That's what it means to me.
Amazing.
I think that was well said. Well said. Well said. And I think that spirituality is as you define it too. Like it just, and I really resonate with the connection part because I believe that by being connected to other people, that we sort of tap into a collective consciousness that wakes us all up.
Yes.
Regardless of what our perspective of things are. So I think that that by reaching out and connecting, and like when I go to a festival or an event where there's a lot of people, I can feel everybody's vibe, right? Everybody's been to like an outdoor event, right? Where you walk, like your vibe, from the moment you arrive, right? The energy changes, and then if you keep going, if it does have any rituals or anything like that, the vibe changes, and you can feel if most people are intoxicated. And I personally, there are some people that get intoxicated in order to get closer to the divine, and I think that that's okay. It's not my vibration, but some people really do that, and I think that it's valid if it works for them. But for me personally, if I want to get really serious about getting in touch with, like if I'm really struggling with something and I need the divine, I need to hear words of the divine, or I need support from the community, or I need to feel loved, I need to transform something because a lot of us carry shit, shadow. And I believe that is just as divine as the positive, as the light. And so I bring my shadow to magic,
Yeah.
and that's why I like alchemy, because in the alchemical circles, the idea is to bring your lead. You're supposed to bring your shit. You're
Right.
supposed to find out what it
Right.
is. You're supposed to find out what it is that you want to transform. And that's the whole idea of alchemy, is that you bring it forward and you transform it into some other manifestation that works for you better, whatever that looks like. And that can look like so many different things. And not usually at alchemical circles, there's not a whole lot of, there is prayers, but the prayers are more like heart shares. We do use the word prayer, and we do what would be called a circle cast, or at least at most of them. There's people honoring the elements. And when we honor the elements, it's not about, like, I don't know, you have to have a certain formula. It's more about getting present, getting your heart and your soul present, so that you can feel connected to the earth, the water, the air, the fire, and spirit in itself, however that manifests for you.
Right.
And that's what I appreciate about it.
Yeah.
That's what I appreciate about pagan and Wiccan events, is that most of the time, that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to help
Yeah.
you get comfortable in whatever you see as your connection to the divine, because some people might connect through fire. I've definitely watched fire tenders, and they have a spiritual experience tending fire all night for an alchemical fire, for instance. And then there could be a water area where somebody feels they really understood what it means to be in service to community by carrying water for people all day, or refilling the big water jugs, right? And when you start doing ritual and spiritual gathers, I think that's when you really get in touch with what it feels like to be connected. What is it to be connected to, spiritual people in a spiritual way? What does that feel like? And sometimes it ain't always, it's not always healthy or good for us.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you have had experiences where there's just somebody controlling, or somebody manipulating the group.
I think it's when you're dealing with people like that, that is one of the hardest things to deal with, because I've also realized we live in a society that, you want to help everybody and you do everything you can to help everybody. But then you have to set up these boundaries and know that somebody is just not, they may not be bad for somebody else, but they're bad for you, and they're toxic for you.
Right.
But we also live in such a judgmental time that if you look at that person and you come to the conclusion, you know what, you're toxic for me, you can't be a part of me. People can't objectively look at that. And their first response is that you're being an ass. And then they make you feel guilty because you set up these boundaries from this one person who was just toxic for you. You never said that person was a bad person. They just weren't good for you. And I've had that experience, because I have had to cut people out who were toxic for me, because this isn't about being selfish. It's about being self-preservation. That's key. That self-preservation of saying, I am what's most important. My mental, physical, emotional well-being has to come priority to everything. And I think a lot of people need to learn that just because you hear a story that someone is toxic, it doesn't mean that they're literally a toxic person for everybody. They could just be for that one person. And don't judge the person who made the boundary, and don't judge the person who is toxic. It's,
exactly. That's well said.
Yeah.
Because this toxic person for me might be the perfect person for this person over here that needs someone like that.
Exactly.
That is not what you need in your time in your life at that moment.
Right. And who knows, maybe 5-10 years down the line, they'd be good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. People learn change every day. Like I say, change is a big part of the world that we live in, especially LGBTQ and the heterosexuals. And, we all need to change with each other. And, thank you guys for doing what you're doing, because you're doing, that you're putting this out there, and there's going to be people to watch this and be all like, oh shit, they're right.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Sometimes it just takes hearing someone else's opinion on whatever it is for certain people to be all changey and really get it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I've definitely had the experience of being in a spiritual circle where it doesn't feel comfortable. I've had to walk away from a few of them. And I think that it's the best choice for me. And the first time it happened, I was very young, and I really didn't understand a lot of what was going on. And when I left, I just knew it was toxic. And I probably made some mistakes, but on my way out, but I learned some really valuable lessons. So was it really toxic?
Absolutely.
Or was it actually a method of healing me? Because I had to witness that stuff that made me go, I need to be gone. I can't be part of this dysfunctional family. And so when I left, I learned a lesson. And isn't that like from the bigger picture when you look at your life, especially like if you look at it from astrological perspectives, which is a huge picture of your life and who you are. And actually, astrology thinks and believes that everything you go through, even the hard stuff, even the toxic people you had to walk away from, are actually lessons for you. And I definitely learned the first time, because by the time I got in the second one, years later, I went, wait a minute.
No.
And no.
Yep.
I'm not committing. I'm not going to give you 100% because I learned before that if I give you 100% or 111%, I'm going to hurt from it. And I'm not willing to do that. And so that holding that boundary, I knew it was there. I knew it was there right away because I learned. And so I think that I could, walk around saying the first experience I was spiritually raped. And that might be true. But at the same time, I can turn around and do the other perspective that says, I learned a lot about cults and that won't be happening again.
Right.
And as a result, I'm a little bit stronger. And so from a spiritual perspective, like astrology says, even in my astrology chart, it says I was supposed to be born into a traumatic childhood. It says that.
Wow.
And so it indicates that in my chart. And many of us that have grown up in situations that we didn't have any choice. It just kind of happened, right? You're born into whatever family you're born into.
Right.
Yeah.
And
decision making or nothing. Yeah.
The gift, I think the gift is when you celebrate it as a lesson, as okay, and some people victimize themselves. Oh, God is punishing me, for instance.
Right.
And that's, I mean, you can take that perspective if you like, but to me, it feels easier to learn whatever lessons, whatever I need to learn, and then walk away with being a slightly wiser person.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel that we map out what our life is going to be while we're in spirit form, and we're like, all right, before we go into this incarnation, I'm going to do this. This is what I need to learn to move on to my higher spiritual self. Yes. And then, boom, we're flesh and blood, and oh my God, is this really what I chose? Did I really want to do this? So, and I also feel like you have parts throughout your life that you can decide, all right, this is my out. I'm going to leave. I'm done with this life or whatever, like those are the near-death experiences.
Right. You
decide, oh, all right, I'm going to fight through. And so that's when you choose to go ahead and learn your lesson. And so you can move on. Yeah. And that's my ultimate goal in life is I just want to move on to where I'm done with incarnations.
Yes.
I find,
and Izzy, I will tell you, because whenever I was younger, childhood wasn't so great, but you know, I would punish myself because I would feel like I was being punished, although I had no way of stopping what was going on. I had no choice in that whatsoever, but I still like, well, I deserve this. I deserve this. And till I got to an age to where I started realizing, no, damn it, I don't deserve this shit, and I'm gonna change it. And that's when I found Wiccan and started following that path. And you know, it's been a goddess send to me to, I feel, save my life and help guide me into my future.
Yeah, so stop flapping that.
Lee, you were saying
So-
something?
Well, just on the topic of lessons and toxic people and spiritual communities, I also find it part of my spirituality to find the lesson behind something. I used to have a quote on my wall that everyone you meet is a teacher. Whether they stay or go,
Right.
whatever impact they have, they're teaching you something.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I've had a really mixed experience with toxic people and spiritual communities, because for me, there was something LeKross said about don't judge the person that somebody else set boundaries with. And LeKross also mentioned I can't stand injustice. Maybe it's the Libra. And I have Libra rising in my chart. Hello, I'm also into astrology. I've really struggled with, once I'm included in a family, I want to be of service and I want to be a good influence and a positive being in that space. So when somebody is toxic towards me, I'm less likely to do anything about it. I'm less likely to set my boundaries. But I found that if I see somebody as actually toxic towards the community, I see that the way they act and behave and the way they talk to other people is affecting a group of people negatively, or a group of people is suddenly confused by an action that they undertook, and they're like, I explained it perfectly clear, and I was the only one sitting there like, you're using omitting language, there's something else behind this.
Right.
Which happened in one of my Wicca experiences. We were going over our bylaws, and the lead priest said that we were going to do a vote. If you have no problem with the words as they are written, vote yes. If you have a problem and want to change it, vote no. But he didn't make it very clear that if you want to change the wording, vote no. But I picked up on it. Not everybody else did. We were all tired. It was the end of the day. We had already had a huge fuss trying to find just a place for all of us to sit. And so everybody kept voting yes, let the law pass, even on things that I knew from talking to them before were things they would want to change the wording on. So I was throwing my black stone in for no. And every time he saw the black stone, he was more and more irritated, more and more irritated. Who is it? Looking around the table for if anybody has a tell on their face for, you know, the black stone. And I was the only one tossing a black stone every time, anytime I had an issue with the wording. And then we came to the close, and we had gone through all the bylaws, and suddenly several people at the table were like, well, I thought we were going to go over it. I thought we were going to go over the wording. I really want to word some of these. And he's like, you voted yes.
So
after that and several other incidents from that fellow in particular, he seemed to be triangulating people, which is something I'm really sensitive to because it happened in my family. I had a toxic family member that would triangulate anybody they could. And so I ended up leaving the group. I wrote my sister out of the group. Like, I did a formal, I am leaving your community. Here's my name signs. I won't be returning. And practically the group disbanded, and he ended up moving to another state.
right.
but I have this trouble in communities learning to separate the toxic person as their own person who has benefits. Like LeKross was saying, you don't, if somebody sets a boundary with somebody else, that doesn't mean that person is necessarily toxic for you, but I'll immediately have that protect my family, grr, get out of here. I don't like you anymore. You've hurt people that I care about, kind of mentality. And I think that's an area of growth that I need to work on for sure, because I am pretty quick to judge and set boundaries for other people, and that's not my place. I'm overreaching my energy because I need to set boundaries for myself unless I am lead or responsible for that community in a higher capacity. So I really appreciate these conversations so far.
I think, well, I want to reiterate on that. When you start hearing like a person is toxic, you know, and you don't want to judge, I always say you don't judge until you have all the facts. Now, I'm not saying you don't judge at all, because I mean, eventually there are these people that, yeah, they're just a bad person. They're just bad. They're just no good.
Right.
But you got to do the research, you know. I try to give people, like, in my sense, the benefit of the doubt, but we also have that gut instinct. And let me tell you, my gut 99.9% of the time is never wrong. And if I got that gut feeling saying, no, it's I will smile, I will be happy, I will be cordial. I will not open this up in any way, shape, or form, because I will always follow that gut.
I'm learning that more
exactly.
and more. I agree with you.
Yeah.
You know.
And I am too. I'm learning that too. You know, it's kind of difficult for me as well, but I'm learning that to where it's my own space and it's my own energy that I'm receiving from people. And, you know, it might be horrible energy to somebody else, but if it's not horrible to me, I'm still going to at least be like, hi, you know, hey, I'm T-Roy, da-da-da-da-da. And then through that, you know, to find out that, you know, it's bad or good or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Excuse me. So
one of the things
I was about to say next on the
one of the things that I've recently had to deal with, or have really had a good look at, I actually read about it in a book and then had to deal with it in a community that I'm part of. Spiritual bypassing. I'm pretty sure Lee also read about it in the book How to Be a Good Ancestor. If you remember, I'm trying to remember her. I can look up her book, and I'll put it in the chat. But what I'm saying is that, you know, that spiritual bypassing is when someone is like, where you are having a bad day, you're like, I really had a screwed up day. Oh my God, I have a headache and all these terrible things are happening. And then they bypass your experience with a spiritual input. Like, they'll say, oh, you're just not praying hard enough. Or, oh, pray a little bit harder. You'll get what you need. Or, you just have to think positively. And it's actually a form of toxic positivity usually. And it's kind of a little, and they do it a lot with people of color. So you'll see it a lot with people of color, because they're like, yeah, but, and they bring up something, and then sometimes they're dismissed because, you know, because of a perspective that we're not even that white people aren't always even aware of. And so as a result, spiritual bypassing is just kind of using spirituality to dismiss your shadow, which usually is just because they're uncomfortable with the shadow, that whatever you're coming in with, which could be a lot of different things. Like, I've had to come from cult trauma, which is essentially
Uh-huh.
when you sing that song, I go back to the cult I was in, and I'm having a hard time trusting you now.
Right.
And just even that experience is a real experience for me. And I think that spiritual bypassing is just but it's about the song, right? And so then they've dismissed you and your experience. And that's kind of like a thing. I was like,
Oh, I can't stand that. I can't. Oh, Lord, you're hitting a chord, because I'm just like, the minute well, you're not praying hard enough, or you're not doing this hard enough, or you're not meditating hard enough, or you're not, you know what? Shut your pie hole. Like, that's where my sarcasm goes out the window. Like, I mean, my niceness, I'm just like, first off, you're not living in my shoes. I don't like people who don't validate other people's suffering. And I guess that is a big deal within people of color, because when you're a person of color, you have lived most of your life under some sort of oppression or suffering. And me being a person of color, I know that firsthand. And when I'm patronized, and I think that's more what it is, it's like this patronizing that they do to you, and condescending. It's very condescending. And it literally just like, your plight, it's not, I just don't want to hear about it. Let's move on next. You know, it kind of dismisses you, like you were saying, it dismisses you. And that's a very frustrating feeling. Especially, if you had a bad day, okay, why can't you just validate that with me? Share that with me. I had a bad day, and thank you for listening. And, you know, tomorrow's another day. It'll be fine. I'll survive this. But no, see, I go into shut your pie hole. That's where I go.
I find that holding space for other people is so sacred that I don't really understand why the spiritual bypassing exists. If you're deep and studious in your own spirituality, why you would spiritually bypass other people. Just because I just learned and feel that holding space for somebody, being there with somebody while they're in a state or anything like that, you don't have to take on their emotions. You can shield so that you don't get that empathetic twinge of pain. You can, you know, moderate yourself so that you can just hold space, just clear the air with them. And then related to more what Hollis was saying, we can kind of spiritually bypass ourselves. It's not always other people spiritually bypassing us. We can decide that we want to get to the end product without actually doing the hard, gruesome work to get there, because spirituality can be a lot of emotional, internal, psychological work that you're doing on yourself, and that you're doing through whatever you connect with, through your yoga, which I use as well, through tarot cards, which I also use, through astrology, and through connecting with other people, through songs that you sing with a group, through drum circles, and whatever it is to you, gardening. That I find that if you're doing your gardening, you're still doing your work, you're less likely to spiritually bypass. But I know me, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling something. I'm feeling something really deep and I need to deal with it. Well, let me just do this 20-minute yoga session. It'll all be fixed. And after the yoga session, I won't have to worry about it anymore. And that's not the case. Sometimes the yoga session opens it up even more, or sometimes I distracted with the yoga session instead of actually digging deep into it. So I think it's a travesty to do it to other people, but it's also not a great thing to do to yourself, because you're inhibiting your spiritual path. You're inhibiting your growth by spiritually bypassing yourself.
I agree.
I think if we were to show ourselves as much compassion and consideration as we do to other people, because that's, I think, another issue that like what you're mentioning is, it's like we don't give ourselves enough attention and enough maintenance on ourselves. And that is also that's once you, like you said, a travesty. You have to be able to do for yourself, because once again, it amplifies out. And if we're just going to hurry up and try and get to the end of it, you know, at the end of it, guess what? You got nothing to give. And, you know, it makes it a little difficult.
You burned yourself out.
Right. Oh, and I
And
do that a
it's
lot.
Absolutely.
and isn't it interesting how someone can like just someone's attitude or mental health at the moment or their energetic field can totally change things. In
Yeah.
fact, one person asked
Yes.
asked, I bet you could each tell a little story about someone's vibe affecting good or not. Like even just in a room.
Yeah.
And I want to address that because frankly, I know Bright Hawk is my partner, and I'm just gonna say that when we're in a spiritual setting, I notice that when she plays her music, that it because it's her attitude, she's a very positive, uplifting person, and her music, it
Mhm.
tends to raise the vibration. Everybody in the space
Yes.
is more open, more willing to
Yeah.
connect. Everyone's more a little bit happier, and usually
Yeah.
their hearts is a little bit more open, and then therefore they can connect. That's what we used to do in nursing homes. She would play that instrument and it would shift the whole group. And then they would suddenly become more
Yep.
open to dancing with me when they normally wouldn't be when they had dementia. And so that's one of just by one person being in there, if your energy is on point or intense, I've seen people shift it both ways. So I'm sure you guys have a story, but that's like one of my favorite stories is that the way she can make the whole room feel open and open to love and connection with each other.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I
Well,
had a
daily in my daily life, I'm a manager and a food joint, and I have to tell people all the time that it starts with the leaders. And if the leaders have a bad day and letting it show, then it's going to trickle down to the crew and then to the customers and so on and so forth. So your vibe is just in every day, no matter what setting you're in, you can control. If you can control your own emotions and your own vibes, then you can control the whole rest of the area. Now, it goes the other way. Like you can be trying to be like, all right, guys, it's going to be a great day, blah, blah, blah. And then you have this one person come in with this shitty attitude.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard you try to work it, you cannot get it. You have to get that person out of there or
Right.
fix them. And a lot of times, get the person out of there.
Yeah. And whenever I sing and whenever I go to the place that I sing, I love going there because, like you said, you can walk into a place and you feel energy. And whenever I walk into a certain place, I feel sky. And like everybody's attitude and just themselves totally change, and it's like, oh my God, hey, kind of thing. And before then, they would just be sitting there, kind of like not on a log and not really enjoying themselves and having everything on their shoulders that they dealt with that day or that week or their whole life or, whatever. And yeah, I can definitely feel that energy whenever I do walk into a room, just change a lot of people.
I find that usually I have to say the right words or have the right kind of behavior to have that effect on somebody. I just don't vibe outward that strongly, although people can pick up on my mood really fast. And usually the capacity that I end up having that positive effect on people is just validating whatever emotional space they're in at that point in time. Like, oh, you look like you're having a rough day. And they're like, oh yeah, this has been happening. And I don't say anything like you'll get over it or it's passing soon or it's in the past now. I like, that sounds like that's really difficult. Would you like to talk about that? Is there anything we can do to make that better? And then like, afterwards, even if we decided there was nothing that could be done, even if it was just like, oh, it's just another day and nobody can really help with it, their body language changes. They're lighter on their feet. Their shoulders are up. Just acknowledging the space that they're in has such a positive effect on them. And I love being able to do that for people. I love providing for people the space to feel comfortable in their own skin. And I've had many people tell me that around me is like one of the first times they've experienced being comfortable in their own skin. And I'm just like, wow, you've been walking around for over 20 or 30 years and you've never found any comfort in your own skin.
Wow.
But I don't say that out loud.
Yeah,
right.
You know, that would be invalidating. But yeah, just the vibe of other people. And then good or bad vibes that Hollis was talking, that Brighthawk was talking about in our comments. I have Libra rising as a Pisces, and then I have a Libra mom. And every morning, it didn't seem to matter. We would wake up on opposite ends of the bed. And you could tell the moment that we interacted with each other first thing in the morning, the moment we were both in the same room, we would have a different body language. We would have a different way of speaking. If I was in a bad mood, she was in a great mood. She was singing. She was poking fun. She was having a great time. And I was just like, please leave me alone. I want my coffee and to go back into my den. And then I would wake up in a positive mood. I'm like, finally, I'm going to catch mom in a good mood too, because she was just in a good mood yesterday, right? And then she wakes up like, coffee only, no talking. And it was just, it was funny. And I can't imagine what that duality of conflicting energies really, what kind of effect it had on other people, like my sister in the house or anything like that. In retrospect, I found it funny.
Right.
In the time, it was one of the most frustrating experiences I could have, because every morning we woke up, we were on complete opposite sides, and we love each other to death. But, you know, when you live with each other, that gets annoying after a while.
Yeah. I hear that. I'm a Libra. I always wake up grouchy. It took me years to realize that I can't let people's... There's this saying I always say. I said, I know what I bring to the table and I'm not afraid to eat alone. Okay. With that being said, if you're going to come to my table, I'm not going to feed you either. Like, if you're coming with negativity, I'm not going to feed that. If you're going to come with me with this attitude and whatever, I just don't entertain it. And that's a big thing. It took me a very long time to learn to do that for my own self reason, because I struggle with anger. I don't, you know, make excuses or anything, but I do struggle with it. And if I can sense somebody's vibe and realize that they're an angry person, well, no, you can't be around me.
Right.
And I try so quickly to flip it, you know, because being a Libra, your scales can get tipped so quickly and so fast. Yeah. But yet at the same token, I take a lot from like the Hopi tribe. The Hopi tribe have their medicine person is a fool. It's an idiot. It's the village idiot. That is their medicine person. And he is the one who will just go out of his way to make everybody laugh and make everybody have a good time and make everybody just feel comfortable and I've realized I'm like, okay, so yeah, I'm more like the Hopi with a bad temper, and realize that's the way it works for me, because I can either come over here and I will try and I'll be like, hey, you know, how's it going? Everything's great, blah, blah, blah. Everything, you know, be all Mr. Charismatic. And at the minute I see that, I'm like, okay, next. You know, I'm not even going to entertain it. And I've realized, because energy is really powerful. It is so powerful. And when you let it affect you just as much as your energy can affect somebody else's, it's going to affect you. So you have to determine what you're going to allow to affect you and what you're not going to allow. And
I'm still learning the boundaries between holding space and setting boundaries. Like, do I hold space in this moment or do I move on?
Right. And don't get me wrong, I haven't have it figured out. You arrive when you die. I haven't figured it out, but at least I can sit there and say, hey, these are nice things that I'm learning, that I'm bringing along the way, that I'm constantly working on, because you're constantly working on it. You know? So yeah, with that, I kind of take a moment at a time and see whose energy is working, whose isn't. And yes, okay, we can hang. No, I'm out. You know, it's
so. Right. So not to change the subject too far, but I want to just feature another question that I thought was the most important question so far on here. Is that someone is asking us Sandy Griffin is asking us to explain what a trans man is. And since there's several of us, I will go ahead. Why don't you start with that one, LeKross?
Okay. Trans man. I am a trans man. I was born female, and I was not in the right body. So, born in a female body with the brain of a man, and grew up like that. And then eventually decided I can no longer live like this. So, I began to transition, started taking, well, first went to therapy. That was key for me. Therapy. Uh, then changed my name, got on hormones, and now I live my life as a man. For me, that was my journey, but not everybody's journey is the same. So that's my definition of me being a trans man. So thank you, T. Roy.
I'm glad that we can have these kinds of questions in this space because I'm prepared
Yes.
for these kinds of questions. For me, I, at the age of 4, knew that I was a boy, but nobody else around me agreed with that. And then the more I learned about anatomy, I was like, well, I guess I don't anatomically count as a boy, so I must be wrong. And then as I got older, I learned about what transgender is, what gender variance is, somebody who doesn't fit the typical gender roles, somebody who doesn't fit the typical clothing for a certain gender, you know, like a woman wearing a suit and tie might be gender variant, and a fellow wearing a skirt instead of just a kilt would be gender variant in some ways. And it took me a long time to decide, is this going to include any medical transitions? Because for the common understanding of transgender peoples that it includes a medical transition. And I'm really sensitive to hormones in my body. I learned that going through amenorrhea, if you're familiar with that. And eventually I did decide to try out the hormones. You know, I told myself I will give it 2 years, and if I don't like how it's going, or if it's really negative on my mental health, then I won't do that. Because at 24, 5 years ago, I started letting people know this truth that I had inside me, that even though anatomically I'm female, I'm a man. I've always identified as a man. I realized that if I was a man walking down the street in a dress, I'm no less of a man just because I'm wearing a dress. So for me, I'm no less of a man just because I'm wearing a female identified body. And the hormones are going pretty well, as you can see. A little bit of beard has appeared. And something that's amazing for me is that my whole life I grew up with this incongruency in the mirror. I'd look in the mirror and I wouldn't recognize myself. It'd be like, oh, who's that? Well, I'm the only one in the bathroom, so it must be me. And this happened for years and years. I even wrote essays about the experience because it was just so pervasive for me. And now that I am a little over a year taking hormone treatments to have a male hormonal body rather than a female hormonal body, I look in the mirror and that's me. Every time I look in the mirror these days, it's me. Like, I don't spend time confused. I don't spend time feeling at odds. I just look in the mirror, do my hair, and leave. And it's easy, and it's natural, and it's comfortable. Awesome. And I can't imagine that everybody my whole life, well, most people throughout my life have always had that experience, have always looked in the mirror and been like, yes, let's take care of this and go, because that was me. And it was always like I would leave the mirror after taking care of myself and be like, yeah, why did my nose look different this time? Why does my face not look like my face? And so it's been going very well for me, and I might stay on hormone treatment for longer than 2 years to get a more get more of that, hey, it's me in the mirror. But I also struggle because I'm a man regardless of how society sees me. I'd really like it if people I'm talking to and meeting could say, hello, sir, how are you today? The first moment that they shake my hand, rather than, good morning, dear, how are you, hun? Which is typically what female identified people get. So It's a lengthy explanation, but I hope that's a good explanation for what
I thought it
might
was
be.
fantastic. I thought it was fantastic. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to
That's
add that
beautiful.
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, I think that Transman means some things for different people. For me, I found that when I started questioning, first of all, I kind of was like Lee, where I kind of thought I was wrong when I was a kid with any kind of dysphoria of the body. I just thought it was me. Like there was something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. And then later, when I
Correct.
got much older, I was attracted even in not just like sexually or romantically, but in a friendship way to drag people and to transgender people. I was attracted to that community, and the more I was attracted, the more I became aware that there was a reason. It was like, I was
Right.
being attracted for a reason. And the interesting part was when I started questioning, I was also part of the Radical Fairies, which is actually a really great group. They're spiritual queers. And I became part of a year long of moon rituals that was about God, goddess, both and neither, which is the exploration beyond the binary, obviously. And at the time, I was like, wow, that's really powerful. And I didn't really know what it meant until like 15 years later, 10 years later. And I started doing yoga and wondering why I was so sad and depressed all the time. And I finally realized that it was because I wasn't living my full, authentic self.
Right.
And as I became aware of
Yeah.
that, I went into drag. I became a drag king. And I'm also a male impersonator. So if you see me in drag as Izzy, if you look up Izzy a he, you'll see that my pictures, I could easily walk down the street and people would just assume I'm a man. And when I was in drag. And so as a result, I got he, and I could walk into a store and people, or walk down the street in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, without any problem. People would assume I was a man. And so after some time, I also realized that although I was a natural trans man, I didn't take any hormones, but I had completely changed my life at that point. I had lost 100 pounds. I had changed the way I thought about myself. And I changed the way I even presented in the world. And I presented more masculine. And so I call that a natural trans man. And that's how I identified for a really long time. Just recently, I'm on hormones for also health reasons, but also trans reasons. So sort of like the both. It's almost as if spirit is insisting that I'm on hormones for some reason. And so it's okay. It's fine. 2020, has been rough for a lot of us, and I've taken the path. And so now I'm on that. And it's just a different experience. But I think all of us trans men, we all have a different experience.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing we notice in the transgender and even in the gay and lesbian community. Gay men and queers of all kinds will say, gosh, every one of our coming out stories is interesting.
Yep.
So on that note,
Oh my
we're
gosh,
going to take a little commercial break.
Oh, wait.
What was that, Kevin?
Well, today my cousin, he's staying with us. He's 18, and he's like, I hope this don't offend you, but when did you come out? And I was like, oh, I'm 16, and I told him all about it. He's like, well, when did you and Troy meet? And I told him about that story and whatnot. And he's like, I hope I didn't offend you. I was like, no, we all have our own stories. It's like being gay and being straight. You being straight, you don't have to worry about, oh, hey, this is who I am,
Right?
Because you were raised this way and that's how you are. But coming out or being gay, you have to tell everybody, hey, this is who I really am. That's their own coming out story. And I said, and most of us are happy to tell you because it's part of our experience, and everyone has their own experience with it.
But it's that teacher thing, I mean, if somebody is curious, somebody wants to know, why not tell them instead of just shouting out and be all like, and going off on them. Let's communicate with them and teach them right from wrong.
Right.
And yeah, Sandy, I think you just got the wrong LGBTQ people because
Hi, Christy.
you just come on these shows. We'll teach you all you need to know.
Come on, girl.
Yep. All right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the commercial break.
It's okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, LeKross is going to interpret somebody's dream.
Oh boy.
So we're going to see whose dream he does when we come back. Now, I'm sure you'll be I'm sure it'd be great, actually.
We're back.
Welcome back, LeKross. Now, if we had someone that had a dream, so tell us first, what is really dream interpretation? What is it?
Okay. Everybody has their own ideas of what dream interpretation is. Some people believe that they can literally look it up on the internet and find a symbolism, like if you dream of teeth, somebody's lying to you. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that's not how I interpret dreams. To me, dream interpretation is it's your subconscious. And everything in that dream represents you, what you're feeling, what you're going through. My job is to help that person I'm the soundboard. So when they start telling me about their dream, all I'm doing is telling them what they already know. Because it's their subconscious. I'm not really interpreting, I'm guiding, you could say. And so when they actually start seeing, like if they have a dream and they're like, oh my God, I was falling and, I just kept falling and falling and falling and falling. Well, okay, well, you're falling. Yeah, but then I ran into my cousin and they were falling. Well, your cousin is really you. Why were you both falling? Now you're falling twice. So this is double hard. So you start literally soundboarding it, saying it back to them until they actually end up interpreting it themselves. Because I could tell them what it means, all I want. But if they don't see it for themselves, then it's like reading cards. You could tell them what it means, but if they don't see it for themselves, then they're not going to receive the message that's coming to them from their own subconscious. So that's basically what I do.
Okay. Fantastic. So I love dream interpretation. I think it's fascinating. And before the show, let's see if one of our guests has a dream. Oh. Hey, Lee.
Hello. Yes.
So Lee, what do you think? Did you say you had a dream early on when you first got here? You were saying that you had a weird dream.
Maybe I've actually been having a weird series of dreams lately. And I recently got out of the hospital for stress-related issues. And it was difficult being at the hospital for 10 days. Very limited phone time, very limited access to anything. And so I've been having these dreams where I'm in another sort of hospital at any given time. And this dream in particular, the hospital I was in this time was using nutrition packets and thick water instead of normal beverages and food. So you had to mix the nutrition packet with regular water. And then as your water, you had thick water, the kind of water they give to people who have issues swallowing or keeping anything in their mouth. And then throughout the dream, there were a few weird things that happened. This particular hospital had outside scenes. There was a mini roller coaster in the backyard. And when I wrote it, somehow I had found some bottle rockets and I was shooting them off while riding on the roller coaster. And then a little while later, we went to the rec room that was across the yard in the front, and the rec room was completely locked, and it was going to be locked the rest of the night, and we had nothing to do. And then near the end of the dream, so this was it was a psychiatric hospital at the time, and at night all of the workers disappeared from the adult unit, and I went with them because I was a special watch case, you know, one of those extra suicidal or something like that, so they had to keep a particular eye on me. And at night all of the workers were reading books to little children and getting them ready for bed. So my impression was that this hospital was partially a an orphanage as well. So
Hey, all right. I was taking notes, so bear with me.
yeah, no problem.
Okay, so it's a psychiatric. Well, once again, everybody in the dream is you.
Okay.
Everything, every representation is you. All right.
Okay.
So we'll start at the beginning. You said you were in the hospital, but you already knew that because you were already in the hospital.
Right.
At the time of the dream. But what I found interesting, it was saying nutrition packets you had to mix with water. And they're for people who have a problem with what?
Like suicide, self-harm.
No,
The thick
packet.
water. The nutrition packet in thick waters, like for people who have trouble getting down solid foods or keeping water in their mouth.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
What
do you think would cause not being able to consume food or sustenance? So that should be something that you think about it, that if they're giving that to you, you're giving that to you. You're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not giving yourself enough sustenance. It's just an idea. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is. I'm just saying you're having problems eating and feeding yourself and consuming. And usually if it's in a dream, it's you spiritually. You're just struggling with feeding yourself.
That sounds about right. I was pretty depleted at the time. Still a bit depleted.
Okay, now but what's cool is the mini roller coaster and the bottle rockets. To me, that's funny because it's like you're on a roller coaster. Now that in and of itself shows the ups and downs, because that's what a roller coaster is. It's this constant up and down, up and down, up and down. But you're shooting bottle rockets, so even though everything is up and down, you're still finding that time to kind of like let a little bit loose, not too much, but a little bit loose.
Yeah.
But then the sad part is you come up to the rec room when it comes to doing real exercise and it's locked.
Yeah.
So when it comes to you actually really doing something further for yourself, you're locked out.
Okay.
You can't get in. So I don't know if you're locked out spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, only you can determine how you're locked out.
Good points to explore for sure.
Yeah. And then now I also found interesting, you're in a special units of, special watch unit.
Yeah.
And the workers disappeared. That sounds like abandonment.
Yeah.
But then at the same token, they're going off to these children that you thought was an orphanage. What are orphans? They're abandoned. Not whether it's deliberately or not, their parents are gone. They were still taking care of you. Like you're not really abandoned. You just feel like you're abandoned.
I like that interpretation because if everybody is you in a dream, then all the workers are taking care of the kids. So you're to some degree taking care of the inner kid.
Right. But you still feel abandoned.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't feel like you're taking good enough care of your inner child. Maybe you feel you should be giving more to that inner child.
I could see that for sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much how I see the breakdown. I mean, but then at the end, what you have to do is start writing them down and literally start breaking each little piece as you remember. And so what does this mean to me? What does this part mean to me? What does that mean? I love dream interpretation. Oh yeah, because it's really more of a it's amazing when you start really seeing what exactly, like, what does it mean? Like when you start thinking, oh, I didn't even think it was that. Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when you start thinking about it, we stifle our inner child so much. We stifle that because we're such in a world where grow up, be responsible, do this, do that, go here, do there, work your job. But you never get to be that child. You barely can be that child growing up. And then now that you're an adult, even less you could be the child.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to always connect so much to that inner child. It's important. Be immature, please. You know,
I do my best to connect with the inner child, but balancing the immaturity, like I'm allowed to be immature for a while versus I'm an adult and need to be mature all the time.
Right. It's hard to balance that. I guess it's also just, you know what you need to do as an adult, but you can always have the mind of a child when it comes to doing it. It doesn't always have to be so, and so, you know.
That's yeah.
You know,
bringing in the inner child brings in a lot of creativity and open-mindedness that can help a lot.
And then you'll enjoy what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Love. You give a little kid a job and they're like, oh, yes, I want to do this. And oh, yes, I want to do that.
I can help people.
Yes, exactly. So it's amazing. So it's kind of like going in with that perspective. So I hope it helped.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Because I do my own dream interpretation. I have been probably as long as you have been, and I've done it for friends and school peers and everything like that. But with my own dreams, I get hung up sometimes, especially when it's reoccurring dreams, because I know I'm missing something if it's reoccurring. So, thank you so much.
Oh no, thank you. So.
Well, that was fantastic. I thought that was fantastic. Well done, LeKross.
Thank you.
I mean, I think dream interpretation is priceless. And especially if you tell someone else, because then they have a different perspective, if nothing else. So, well, I think what we're going to do now is bring T-Roy and Kevin back, and we are going to finish up our little discussion about what is spirituality. I do want to say that in the comments, Ted said something that really vibes with me, which is music is a healer. It can sway our emotions, just like raising our own vibration to a happier place can affect others.
Right.
You know, this really vibes with me because that's one of the reasons I love Alchemical Circles, is because that's one of the things that they do is a lot of music. They have a lot of expression of songs with lyrics like Abby McBride and other musicians, Bright Hawks songs. And there's lots of songs. Like, you just wouldn't believe. I love the lyric part, and I also love certain instruments like the handpan that Bright Hawk plays. I also enjoy the African drumming. I enjoy drumming in general. So I don't know about you guys, but I bet you guys have a type of music that really speaks to you in a spiritual way.
Oh yeah.
Actually, for me,
love. Anyway, so when it goes down to it, and then of course, being from the Ozarks, we love that old mountain music. You know, it all kind of hits to the heart.
The harp.
Now, mine is definitely the Latino music. I love my Latino, but I listen to anything from Vivaldi to Ozzy. You know, but there are some music I just can't really do. But I mean, 90% of it I can do, and I'm really big into indie folk. I love indie folk music.
Yeah, I can't say what kind of music I'm into in particular these days, but I will say that when it comes to participating in community events, because I'm mostly solitary within my own practice of spirituality, usually keep it to myself in my home. But I love community events, especially when music is involved, drums are involved. I usually go for the guided meditations and the group music because I feel so connected and so open when there's group music going on, when there's music with easy lyrics that you can join in on. And it doesn't matter if you're out of tune because everybody sounds harmonious anyway. There's enough people singing it.
Absolutely. Totally.
Very, very moving. So music has such a huge impact. I use it for a variety of things. I use it for productivity. I use it for mood adjustments. I use it for mood validation. For writing inspiration. There's just music alone is so versatile.
It is.
I don't know what we do without it. And I remember reading an article some time ago. I can't tell you who the article was from, but it was propositioning that the beginning of spirituality in human history was with music.
That's interesting.
I can
Feel
believe
free,
that.
anybody,
Like, I really
look it up
can't.
and share it.
I'm sorry?
Totally.
Oh, I said if anybody wants to look it up and share it in our comments, go ahead.
Oh,
We would
okay.
love to read it. I think T-Roy was trying to say something too.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, totally. I feel you with the whole music thing because, you know, I love music, and whenever I got old enough, not that I'm too old, I'm young still, like 25. And so whenever I got to a certain age, music, I really started finding myself within that too, because whenever I listened to it, it literally took me to another place. You know, it would take me to the place that was time, but there are some music that will still have a change within you if you're having a bad day and it's a bad song to the whatever is going on a bad day. So, you know, it's another thing that we have to, you know, filter and go through and choose wisely so that we, you know, it helps you instead of taking you down. Because to me, music is to lift you up and make you feel good, and you are to feel what that song and what everything is about at that moment in time of listening to it, not bringing you down to where it's like, oh God, really, give me the beer, or you know, whatever.
No, we want it to be all right. Give me the beer.
I was
Boy,
listening to
it's
you
hot
all
up in
talk
the
about
studio.
music. The funniest thing
Springtime down here in
about
Ozark.
you guys look fabulous to me, as far as I'm concerned. You
Uh,
guys just remind me of my
Thank you.
drag, of our drag family, of our beautiful drag family. You know, drag is such a beautiful performance thing. So when you talk about music, you almost
It's
can't
like we're
talk. You
baking.
can't avoid.
Yeah.
When you talk about music, you can't avoid drag.
Yeah.
Because
No, you can't.
as a result, as being a drag performer, what would happen for me is I would get a song that would either be something I want to manifest or something I want to deal
Yeah.
with, like I can't seem to let go of this old relationship, or I can't let go of whatever
Right?
this is. And so then as a drag performer, if you pick the song and then you have to practice it a good, at least 15, 20 times,
Oh,
because you got to get the lyrics down and whatever your choreography is.
yeah.
And then you got to get an outfit.
Yep.
And you're putting all this energy into this performance. And then when you do perform it, it is sacred and it is a spiritual experience.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because when you step on that
It
stage,
is.
first of all, you have to step through all kinds of fear and anxiety about what's going to happen on the other side of that curtain or door or whatever. And then once you do get on stage and start expressing yourself and doing hopefully what you practice, probably not, and and then you perform the song, something happens to you as a drag performer. You've probably, if you were intentional, you could have you will begin to manifest whatever that, it's like a magic spell. I would call it's like a magic spell for us. And it helps us transform. Like I had a bad relationship and I needed to let it go. And then after I did, I after I performed a particular song, boom, it helped me move through it. It helped me move through the shadow. So yeah, I'm sure you've had this, LeKross.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I always said drag is medicine. I don't care what anybody says, but drag is medicine. You have 3 to 5 minutes to help people forget their shit. They forget their shit because
that's right.
You know, and you yourself within those 3 to 5 minutes are forgetting your shit, and you are bringing, whether it's somebody's laughter or somebody crying or somebody, you know, you're not just pushing through the emotions yourself. Maybe somebody else out there had a bad breakup and they're pushing through that emotion also as well. And with me, like my drag is always telling a story. That's why I do characters. I want to tell a story with every single character that I have. And each character has a little bit of my story in it. So with each song, I'm not just randomly picking a song that just suits that character. It has to suit what that character goes through, what I've been through in my life, manifest it, like you said, and then perform it. And then it just doesn't become sacred. It's medicine. So that's how I've always seen drag.
Yeah, I can tell that too, because whenever I watch drag, I really feel that performance. And, you know, I have a drag king friend, and whoo, let me tell you, he goes through some, like, I don't see how y'all did it, but but yeah, there's a lot to being a drag king, queen, you know, there's a lot to it. But once you get it in there, and like you said, you grow from it and you move on. You know, it's a really good way of shutting that door, and, you know, that's your healing. And it's not only yours, but it's everybody else's as well. You know, I'm sure that they do it for a purpose. And I think that's really where it came from back in the day was, oh my God, why not do this? Because it's, you know, so much fun. And, you know, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought I would.
Awkward silence.
Well, that happens.
I know, right? And then I say, it's so hot in here.
It's hot in my room too. Don't worry.
Well, I wanted to have there's a statement by Ted. Well, I guess it's a question and a statement. But do you think we make our lives more complicated when it doesn't need to be? We take on so much because we think we have to. Once you let all that doesn't belong fall away, you find yourself healing and self-care becomes easy. And I thought that was just, first of all, well said. And second of all, that I feel like, there's lots of times that I let go. I have to let go of something. And do you turn to the divine? Do you turn to spirit? What do you do in that moment when you feel overwhelmed and you just have to let it go? Like it's completely out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, for instance, you know, COVID or shooting, right? These are all things that none of us have any control over. And so in that moment, for me, I turn to my divine energies around me, which are usually defined as my ancestors, or the elements of the earth. So what do you guys, what's your experience in that?
Yes.
I'll let you guys go ahead.
If I have
first.
to let something go, I give it. I go ahead, I find me a tree, and I put all of my thoughts, all of my emotions, everything that is bringing me down into the tree. And then, of course, after I have released all of that, I thank the tree, and I thank Gaia for giving the tree to get rid of my negative energies and my negative thoughts, and for taking it from me. Because it's giving it back to the earth, and then the earth can change it into different positive energies, or use it for volcanoes, however it wants to.
Yes. Yeah, I use water a lot. Like I said earlier, it really soothes me, and it really takes whatever that is bothering me away. You know, I don't have to be in it, but oh my God, whenever I am in it, I literally just feel awesome. Like I feel like I'm on top of the world, but I'm in water, you know, and so purified. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not thinking about anything. My aura is totally different than what it was before I entered the water, or I got there and closed my eyes and started meditating and listening to the sound of the water over the rocks. You know, that's what I do, is I try to put myself somewhere else. And usually it is in the wilderness or some sort of water.
See, we're both Capricorns, but I say, and I've said this since I've known him, that he was born 5 days too early because he was working through. Like,
I can really relate to water. I find it very clearing of the mind for me, and I definitely feel on top of the world when I'm
Yeah.
around it. Even like when I go swimming, I have friends that are so used to me having nervous pent up energy that they don't know what it looks like when I'm like truly serene and relaxed. So they'll ask me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. Enjoy yourself. I'm just floating. We're good."
Yeah,
Um,
right. I am totally.
um, the question was, do we make our lives more complicated, and how do we uncomplicate it? I definitely overcomplicate my life. Other people tell me so, even if I don't think I'm doing it. And breathing and centering. And centering is kind of what I call it when like I do a breathing exercise, but like I just take a moment to get into present reality. I take a moment to get into here and now, my surroundings and how I'm feeling. And when I center, I feel like this open expanse on the inside and my mind clears away a bit. It doesn't become totally empty, it just clears up a bit. And that usually helps me see through some of the complications I might have built for myself or that might just be presenting to me. Um, it's something I'm still definitely working out because I don't always recognize when I've caused complications in a situation or in my life by my thinking, my attitude, behaviors. It can be hard to untangle all of it because life itself is already so complicated. So what are all of the
It is.
features included in a situation? um, but
Yeah.
it's easier as I get older, as I keep practicing it. So
As for me, it's a little difficult because I'm an atheist, so I don't really turn it over to anything. So I just let that shit go. Like, I mean, here's the deal. It's like
Yeah.
I look at it like, I mean, spirituality doesn't have to always be complicated. Sometimes it can be very easy. And if there's a situation where I'm overwhelming myself or I'm taking on too much, once again, we go back to that guilt issue. And we start feeling guilty
Yes.
for saying no. And we feel guilty for not being able to follow
Yes.
through. And to me, it's basically a simple decision and a conscious decision of saying, you know what, I can't do this. And this is what I can do. And there it is.
Mhm.
I'm
That's
not going to
it.
allow the anxiety to just keep, like, of course I get anxiety. It's going to start building and building and building. But I have to make, with me, it's more a thought process, a conscious decision of saying, fuck it. There's nothing I can do. Let it go. Why am I going to
Exactly. Yeah.
carry this? And
Yeah.
why am I going to? So it may not be
Right.
how do you say, as beautiful, but it's effective. And I think that's,
Mhm.
to me, I'm more of a thought person. More, it has to be logical. Everything has to be logical. So that's how I look at it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I think it can be really simple,
Yeah.
just like sometimes I feel like people overcomplicate talking to their ancestors. No,
right.
really, you really do have spirits all around you all the time, just waiting for you to give permission to help you out because there is a level of free will here in the world. You do have free will. And I
Yeah.
firmly believe in free
Yep.
will. And I thought it was interesting that Joseph said in the chat, he says
Oh, my
we
JoJo.
our I think we see our life as complicated when we compare our lives to others.
True.
And I was like, whoa, that is
Yes.
so much truth right there.
Mhm.
Because I also find that
It is.
to
It really is.
honestly our culture tries to encourage you to compare yourself to others. Facebook
Oh, yeah.
is a great example. And sometimes it can
Right.
be like you can feel
Right.
like this person that you know on Facebook, for instance. I'll use it because it's such a great example, that this person on Facebook always is having a great time,
Yeah.
right? But in actuality, maybe they're like me, and I don't. I sometimes I'll post if I'm really, really struggling, But most of the time, if I had a shitty day, I'm not likely to tell you
Right.
because I don't
right.
want to give it any more energy than it already has.
Not really.
You know, and so when you
Right.
look at someone else's life, you have to remember you're only seeing what they want to share with you.
Right.
Because there's other things going on for
Right.
them, even if
Right.
they're not presenting it to the world right now.
Yeah.
They're just, you know, I'll post if I have I had a heart condition last year and I posted a few times about it. But that was like that's like the biggest physical thing I've ever been in my
Right.
entire life.
Yeah.
To find out I have a heart condition, and I don't usually go around telling people that I had a bad
Yeah.
day. But at the same time, I realized that sharing that I had a bad day also helps people feel closer to me, because then I am showing my own
Yes.
vulnerability, that I'm not walking around in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Right.
And so even being like, life sucks,
Right.
Yeah.
I had a bad day. So I think comparing ourselves to
Yeah.
others is a impact of our culture, is like, it comes from a place
Yes.
that's really not good for us. It's
Right.
really, if you compare yourself to others,
Right.
everybody's on their
Right.
own journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly. And that's whenever the depression kicks in, is whenever you compare yourself to somebody else. You know, that's when you got to follow your own path and you got to like live your own life. And if it feels good and it feels right to you, who gives a shit about everybody else? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just live yourself, live your life. And I have a saying, and that saying is, do not judge to another person, because that makes you the one judging. And
Yep.
do not hate onto another person, because that makes you the hater. And you know, I like that. And I'm with Izzy. I was a closed door. I hid every pain possible as a kid growing up, and even in my teen until I was like 20. I hid all kinds of just my life, and that, you know, I don't need to do that. You know, I decided to open myself up, and I'm probably more vulnerable on my talk show than I am anywhere else, because that is one place I do want to reach people on certain things that I am going through, and to maybe let them know that they're not the only ones going through that at that moment in time, and maybe put a smile on their face and make them laugh, or, you know, something to that extent.
Absolutely.
A little bit better place.
So be a rainbow.
I think like one of the important things is, like we were mentioning about, it's okay to write and say I'm having a bad day. I think the problem is just not feeding it to the point where, like, because even equally as much as we talk about comparing, the toxicity that you will see on your news feed of this person bashing that person talking shit on that person, this person said, and my life is so shitty, and my life is so shitty, and you know, and that's just as bad. And when I look at like my best friend on Facebook is that unfollow button. You wouldn't believe how many times I look at, oh no, unfollow. I think I follow like 6 people now. No, I'm only kidding. I don't. But no, but it really gets you to that point.
That's probably more like me.
Yeah. You know, but when you start seeing that negativity and the negativity and the negativity, and you're like, no, at the same token, because what? Some people are competing. Is my life shittier than yours? You know, I'm having a harder time than you are. People compete with that. Right. I don't get it, but they compete with that. You know,
exactly.
That's crazy. Like my timeline, I try to fill it with just little stupid things. Like if I could make you laugh on my time, if something's serious and I feel that it's a just cause to reach out about, I will say it. But outside of that, no. It's not worth the negativity.
Yeah. So
no, it's not. And I keep block like. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say that one of the things that I found to be the most spiritual is when I'm authentic.
Yeah.
when I am as 100%
Yeah.
me as
Right.
possible. And that's why I wrote this book. It's all about finding out who you really are. Because when you're trans, when you're queer, you had to do some questioning to get yourself there.
Yeah.
You had to figure out that you
Yeah.
weren't like other people.
Yeah.
You had to
Absolutely.
figure out that there was something else
Exactly.
underneath of there. And so then when you figured that out,
Yeah.
that was more authentic for you, right? So do you all agree? Like, I mean, is authenticity like sort of what you would consider your best self or your
Oh
most
yeah.
divine self or the best
Yeah.
expression of yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Or
This
it's
is
your
it, baby.
real. It's the real self.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's the real
Yes.
self. My authentic self is the real me, not the illusions of what people think I am or
That's
the
right.
illusions that I put out there.
No.
Right.
It
Right.
is, in essence, the core, the real me.
And
Yes.
exploring
And
my
I'm a
authentic
believer
self.
that if someone tells you how they are, then listen to them. If someone like I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
People
Yep.
think I'm a nice person, but no, I am an asshole. And so when people tell you what they are, take them for what they're worth. Like
Exactly.
I'm just a nice piss me off. Oh, you have the parental warning, right? The advisory.
Hopefully. Parental warning.
Hopefully. I hope so.
Oops.
They probably heard more at most family gatherings. Anyway.
Yeah.
Did you
Is
have
everyone
something to
in
say, Lee?
I kind of forgot what it was. Something about being authentic. Yeah, no, I find it as such a true form of self. That's what I was going to say, is that my journey to be my authentic self is also what led to me deciding that I need to let people know that I'm a man. No more of this hiding behind being called she and feminine
No more.
words and things like that, but
Exactly.
actually letting people know,
Absolutely.
like, hey, by the way, I know it's confusing, but you're wrong.
Be proud.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
and the more that I explore
Let
it,
people know who they are.
yes, absolutely. And the more I explore that, the easier it is to let other people be who they are, the more secure I am in who I am and my genuine, authentic self. Because I think as teenagers, we're all like, who am I? Will I ever figure that out? I feel so lost all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's worse as a teenager if you've had like a traumatic childhood in any way. And then, you know, with being transgender or gender variant in any way in our modern society, if you don't have access to gender variant communities, you're also like, what's wrong with me? Because I'm not like anybody else I know. But your authentic self doesn't have
That's
to be
right.
like anyone else you know. It's its own unique creative entity.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's someone in the group that's that. See, I've read this question here. It is asking, what is there about us? What is there to accept ourselves off the things we struggle doing so? I think I kind of get what Joseph is saying, is that I know that there are definitely things that kept me from getting to myself, and one of them was that, that I
Yes.
was queer, that I was queer, that I was trans, that I was attracted,
Right.
that I loved women, that there was all kinds of things that made me weird, right? But also the fact that
Yeah.
the Bible doesn't mean the same to me. Those kinds of questions. And I bet even you, LeKross, like being an atheist, you probably had to overcome some stuff to get there.
Oh yeah. Like, what do you mean, like biblically, or what do you
Well,
mean?
I mean, just like you had to like have your own internal struggle about what, I guess, a crisis of faith.
Yes.
You had to ask some questions, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like this isn't I didn't become an atheist in just like overnight. I mean, this was years and years and years in the making, and like I said, at the end of the day, I realized God is irrelevant to me. Irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Even if there is a God, and I always go back to
Right.
this, even if there is a God and I am created in this God's image, then I have free will and I can choose whatever the hell it is that is going to be the purpose of my
Yes.
life. So still, God is irrelevant. If I do not believe in God,
Yeah.
I am still the person who dictates my life. God's
Yes.
irrelevant. And it took for me, and it literally took all this thought and really weighing things out and looking at, once again, this lady will say, oh my God, God saved my child. And this other guy, God, my child is dead. Oh, well, you didn't pray hard enough. Well, what the hell? What made your kid more righteous or you more righteous than that one? It had nothing to do with how much you prayed. It had nothing. And when I started really, really delving and realizing there is a God for those who need it and there is no God for those who don't, I will quote that till the day I die. And it just so happens that I don't need a God. I can be completely spiritual without a God, which technically would make me more godly, because most people believe in God. They do right because they want to get brownie points to get into heaven. I'm just going to die. So if I'm doing right, I'm already more godly. I'm not getting any brownie points. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because of a fire and brimstone. And it is with all these things that I just came to that conclusion where I'm just like, God's completely irrelevant, which is why I consider myself an atheist, because I don't, it doesn't matter to me if he exists or not. I can't prove he does. I can't prove he doesn't. And it doesn't matter either way. So, and hence my faith is I believe in me.
What was that question you asked earlier today, Lee, of LeKross about being atheist? Trying to just remember the exact question.
Does atheism just impact religion for you, or other things as well?
I think it's more the religion that it impacts me, because like I said, it goes back to that whole God and divine thing, or anything that's organized. But also, I'm Native American. I don't believe in a great spirit.
Okay.
But I do believe in the preservation of the Mother Earth. I do believe that it is our, I take what I did from Judaism and Native American and applied it as in just, a rabbi said one time, there are no rights. There are no gay rights. There are no women's rights. There are no rights. There is only responsibility. It is our responsibility as human beings to care for each other with respect and dignity, and to care for our earth, because this is all we got. And it is our responsibility for the generations to come to have a decent home. Where's God in that equation? That's not what the rabbi said. At the same thing with the Native American belief. You talk about the Great Spirit, but it is our responsibility to care for Mother Earth. Her breast, we are never weaned from her breast. We are always sucking at her breast, because we cannot survive without the fruits, without the water. Whatever the mother gives us, we cannot survive. That is a Native belief. Where's God in the equation? Where's the Great Spirit? So I think it's just the whole concept of a God, because I think as long as there's a God, we can pass a buck.
Okay.
We can pass a buck. And it takes away responsibility and accountability for us as human beings. Because if I make it, if I'm Christian, if I'm Christian, I go and I hurt you, I just tell you I'm sorry. I say, oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. No accountability. That's it. I punch you in the face.
Make you do it.
I'm sorry, Jesus. No accountability, and I get to go to heaven.
The devil made you do it, right?
It's too easy. Well, no, not even the devil. Not even the devil, because even in Judaism, the devil's not a bad guy. So this is all misconception there. But like I said, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It passed the buck. If there's a God, you get to pass the buck. You get a ticket free. I could sit there and say, I'm Jewish. I'm one of the chosen people. I got a ticket in. Doesn't matter. I'll just make I'll punch you in the face and say sorry on Yom Kippur. You see, so
right.
once again, no accountability.
Okay.
So
I see
think
that.
that's
So your atheism is kind of you taking a practical approach to your spirituality.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I respect that a lot.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that was well said, LeKross, because definitely, I think atheism and I'm kind of agnostic myself, but I'm also pagan and Wiccan. I do like to honor the elements and stay in touch with nature, and I love alchemy. So, and they all kind of fall under that umbrella.
Yeah.
So, for me, I just think that I think everyone has their own experience in spirituality, and I think we're all supposed to define our own path. And I think gender variant people, in particular, and the entire LGBTQ community is supposed to be doing what we're doing. We're supposed to help shift the entire belief system of the human race about gender, gender roles, and even gender expression and how it comes through. Because in the end, we are all one. We are all one human being. We are all, and the more we are connected and stop putting walls between us, and gender is nothing more than a wall. And so and if you get rid of gender, sexual orientation falls to the side. So the whole thing. And although I love my queer community and I love everything that it means to be queer and to be, drag and to all of that, yeah, it would go away if gender went away.
Right.
Because there would be no more being queer, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if we all could see each other as equal human beings, I would let go of that identity for that, because I believe that that's what we are going forward. So
for me, some of the gender variance was coming to that place of acknowledging humans as humans, because at an early age I started using they them pronouns for just anybody and everybody that I could. Part of it was to protect their identity. I didn't want them to be identified by their gender in my life and their relation to me. But it was also interesting because people would still impose gender roles based off of behaviors, and they were often wrong. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, as we bring the show to a close, I want to say I'm going to pull a card. I got my tarot cards. I got the Pride deck. In case you're interested in what deck I'm using the Pride deck. You can find it online. And the card that we got for the entire community, for all of us here now, is the Death card.
Oh, nice.
Now, you can see here on this set, we have the rainbow flag. We have a person or a skeleton up on there and now the horse is running through a bed of roses there. And if you know anything about the Death card, you know one thing, is that it means change is happening. Whatever was meant to die is dying. It's already dead, and we are moving into the new day. And that's exactly what this card is for. To tell all of us here now, all of us listening, all of us sitting right here now, things are on the mend. Things are on the change. Let that crap go, because it's gone. It's dead. What are you holding on to it for? So move forward, because we are moving into a world, like I just said, which is that everyone belongs. That's the flag that this skeleton is holding, where everyone has a place, where every color matters, where every single human being is a human being, because that's who they are.
Yep.
And on that note, my friends, we hope you tune in next Sunday. Follow us on all kinds of social media. You can find us almost on every platform. You'll find us live on Sunday nights right here. You can watch the show and bring your questions, bring your topics, join the Facebook group, add your topic idea. LeKross and I will keep an eye on that group and engage with you and be happy to bring those on. So that's what I want to say. I want to say thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, T. Roy. Thank you, Kevin and Lee.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's
Nice
so
meeting you, Lee.
Oh, and
You're
thank
fabulous,
W.
baby.
Yeah.
It was nice meeting you all.
Oh, same. And thank VDDB. Oh, I screwed it up.
WLFEDB.
Thank you for giving us a safe space to come and talk about these things, because that's important. So hopefully the more we say out there, the more we can send healing out there, and the more people can receive it.
That's right. And it's so beautiful to come together with a community that loves and celebrates their LGBTQ friends. We're so happy to be part of that. So make sure you tune in to the channel. Check it out. They have a whole string of shows about drag and being queer. T. Roy's got a show. So we hope you'll come check us out next Sunday and check out WLFEDB too. All right.
Bye.
Stay queer.
Peace out. Hello.
Thank you for watching Rainbow Soul, part of the WLFE DB Network, a queer perspective on spirituality beyond religion. We appreciate you sharing the show on your timeline, follow us on social media of your choice, and join our Facebook group, Rainbow Soul. We want to hear from you. Share your topic ideas for Hollis and LeKross. Explore upcoming shows and interesting guests. The Rainbow Soul Facebook group, where we build community of questioning seekers. Rainbow Soul, where spirituality is our medicine.